Greetings and welcome. Thank you for stopping by here on YouTube Live. If you are logging on at the original air date, which is Saturday, June the 4th, 2022. Happy Saturday, otherwise happy whatever day and whatever time you are logging on to this video. Thank you for joining. Anything y'all need to know about me should be listed in the description box. And I just want to send my love and light and gratitude and thanks out to every individual viewer, subscriber who has emitted positive love and light energy towards me, towards Bloom with and Love and what I do here, whether it was just via a compliment, whether it was via liking something, sharing it, subscribing, if you've contacted me for personal things, and if it's just in your heart and your thoughts, I appreciate you all, okay? You positive folks out there is certainly a part of my why, right? Now, the other night I did a live video about more reveal about the divine masculines ones, uh, karmics. And in that live, it was something else I was supposed to share, or at least I felt guided to share, but it went away. So I felt like, well, then it must be about timing. And so it has come back to my remembrance what it was that I was guided to share, but it's about divine feminine. It could resonate for divine masculine. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's about a part of the subconscious programming that the karmic families have, the trauma and the pain, and that what's running in them as to why they attempt to sabotage, whether it is a divine feminine or a masculine daughter, son, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, cousin, niece, nephew, whatever the relation is, uh, that subconscious programming and trauma and pain that they're carrying, which is causing them to do these things. So I was guided to share something about my particular story. Now, my mother and father, I told you guys the story about first and foremost, he should have been hung for the shit he, was messing with my mother at age 13 and 14 years old, and he was well into his 30s. Okay. So it's almost like a sacrificing of your own young, kind of energy. But anyway, so, my father at that time was an actual known pimp. Ironically enough, there are people who kind of, I don't know why they take delight in that knowledge. And I'm like, it's actually sick. And I would be embarrassed and disgusted, but I digress. Okay. So, you know, he was a friend. He was actually a friend of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother at the time, and my grandfather. Okay. Which later in years, was discovered that he wasn't actually our birth grandfather. It was just a man that my grandmother had hooked up with and married, but it wasn't my mother's actual father, okay, birth father. So anyway, like I said, I digress. So, you know, my father ended up getting my mother pregnant with my older sister. And at that very, very young age, okay, now, could you imagine the energy and the frequency that's going on in this dynamic? What kind of seed, what kind of vibration, what is being produced out of that, which was karmic in nature? My older sister is a karmic. Now, so my mother is a karmic, okay? And as is my father. So now I guess I agreed in the ethers and precarnation from my soul's path to carnate into that bloodline of karmics in order to clear out the Akash, clear out that ancestral stuff. Okay, this is usually the story behind most divines. Okay, it's rarely that they are born in this carnation into a divine family. Okay, they could have had a divine family in another life, but it's rare that they're actually born into a divine family this carnation. It's usually they carnated into a karmic family to clear shit out. Okay. Now, again, I digress. So, what ended up happening with my father and my mother, okay, I already said what had happened. You know, he should have been slapped, you know, every which way, up and down, you know. But, you know, anyway, so he impregnates my mom at 13 years old with my older sister. Now, you know, the pimp game and everything that he was a part, there was an attempt to so-called transform and change their lives, right? Um, you know, my mom had my older sister, and, you know, as any youngster, you know, it was probably the love of her life, right? All excited. She had this pimp player of a dude. You know what I'm saying? Y'all already know how that go, right? That's an old ass man, but let me get off of that. Anyway, because I'm like, he ought to be shamed. Ought to be shamed. They should have, you know what I'm saying? They should have hung his ass. Man, I wish somebody would, man. I wish somebody would. Um, but okay, so as time proceeded, we're going somewhere because I'm telling you guys about their subconscious program and why they hate the karmic family targets the divine family member, their subconscious programming and their trauma, and kind of what's running and why they do what they do. So then some years went by because you guys, well, I think I've shared that there's quite a few years between my older sister and I. All right. There's almost 5 years, like four and a half ish or so years between us. Now, here comes old Bloomy Bloom. But here's what's different. Because see, this was all set up. People don't want to believe this, but all this was set up pre-carnation. But because I did choose to carnate into a karmic family, there was an attempt to kill me long before I even had a shot. Okay. So my mom and my dad, okay, my mom, after having my older sister and some time and going through some, you know, situations and stuff, was trying to get my dad to get out of the pimp game. Okay, at that time, I wanted him to not be a whore. And, you know, because my father was a whore and a thief and a thief and a whore and a whore and a thief and a thief and a whore. That's why I tell y'all, this runs deep. It runs deep. It runs deep. People don't want to hear this, though. That's all he knew. That's all he ever was. A whore and a thief and a womanizer. Okay? So then, in the name of trying to appease my mom, you know, at that time, you know, they got married. My mom and my dad got married, okay, after having my older sister. And then, lo and behold, my mom was upset and jealous of one of my father's whores, which happened to have my father's last child. Okay. So my mom, you know, she's still young at that time. You guys have to consider that at that time, you know, first and foremost, she's karmic. Second, she was still young. So, you know, she was like, well, you know, she was having a fight. Well, you know, the petty shit. Y'all already know. Well, so because my dad messed around and did that. So, you know, oh yeah, I'm skipping the story because this is when my younger sister got born. So I'm skipping the story. Well, not yet. That part ain't yet. Okay. So they get married, right? And then here comes me. This stuff is energetic, you guys. It's quantum, it's known, it's felt, it's understood, okay? But the 3D versions of ourselves can't compute entirely. So my mom gets pregnant, and it was a hard pregnancy because at that time, she discovers that my father was, still slipping back into his old ways. They did purchase a house together, but he was still kind of slipping back and forth. And then at that time, you know, um, county services were different. My dad had ended up losing his job because he was what? A thief. A thief. I'm giving it to y'all. I'm giving it to y'all straight. He was a thief. Okay. Con artist. This thievery and con artist energy is in the blood until you ascend, wake up, and heal and transform and, really deal with all of that. Okay. So the job that he had, he was stealing from. Okay. And he gets fired from that. So though him and my mom had gotten married and got a home, now my father was all upset because he didn't have any money. He had tried to give up the player game to a degree, and they had purchased this home. And so the pregnancy and my being there served as a source of pain and sorrow. So subconsciously, my mother and my father, they already had their karmic programming towards me, but subconsciously, because of my arrival, my mom getting pregnant with me, okay, and the uh, county laws at that time, after my father sabotaged himself, being a thief and poor, and stealing from his own job, okay, caused them to go through a lot of pain and suffering and turmoil. My mom had to move out of the home with my dad, and she had to move in with my maternal grandmother at that time in order to get county services. So I served as a source through their subconscious. They blamed me. Neither of them would ever admit this, but it's clear and evident in their behavior and in their conduct. Okay. So, because all of their associations, the brain, is just telling them, you know, it's because of the pregnancy and me that their whole world got turned upside down versus taking accountability as healthy living adults would for their choices and their actions and their lifestyle. Okay. And the ramifications thereof. So they projected it off onto me. Okay. My mom was upset because she felt like then it pushed my dad to get back deep into the players game because he had lost his job and she had to leave. And so he started inviting, whores and things of that nature over to the house. This is why my mother burned down the house. She burned down the house that her and my dad got together because he got busted. Back to the same old bullshit, right? So to her subconscious is associating all of this turmoil and pain and suffering connected to her pregnancy with me and her having me. Okay. Likewise with my dad. Okay. Because my mom had to move out. Okay. He was trying to, work a job prior, that got married and was trying to have this American life, the good old American dream, the upstanding life, getting married, getting pregnant with me, right? And so to him, it served as what disrupted his stability, which is all narcs care about: their money, their stuff, their lifestyle. They don't give a fuck about their own offspring, to tell the truth. Okay, not beyond how it can serve them. Okay, so This is why, I was told this whole story about him and my mom fighting, and my mom on the ground crying, and him kicking her in the belly while pregnant with me. And, so could you see all of this trauma, first and foremost, that's going on with her and that's going on with him, and then what they caused upon me, right? So, from there, they never healed. Like I told you guys, my family is religious, but that's all they are. Okay? That includes my father. That's all they are, and that's all they ever will be. So, in other words, knowing how to go, a routine every Sunday, go to church, be a part of some kind of group in the church, you know what I'm saying? But the heart and soul is still fucked up. Okay, nothing was never addressed and never truly dealt with. Fake apologies, surface apologies, lack of full accountability, lack of healing, behavior basically the same. So as time proceeded, they looked at my sister like my older sisters, like their last memories of happiness. So this is what they call the golden child. So they prized the narc golden child. Okay. Their last memories of happiness and bliss before everything got fucked up. Shit got fucked up because they were fucked up. But because they refuse to deal with that, it becomes something that's in that subconscious, and this is why they try to sabotage and curse me and my life. My mother did it, my father did it, as well as friends and friends of theirs did it. They looked upon a divine being, which was me, in envy and in jealousy, and hexed and put curses on our lives. My mother did it, okay, as a source of pain, hexing, because she's a karmic. She hexed her mother and she hexed me, okay, as a source of pain and suffering and blame. She looked at me as the child that ruined her great love, which that was no great love, let me tell you, her and my father. But that's that disillusionment, okay? Where her world turned upside down, but it turned upside down because she and my father are karmics, and those are ramifications of the lifestyle and decisions and choices that they both made, period. Okay? So this is what happens in anything thereafter. So in other words, in my life, when, I never really had an issue of independence, after I had my son, got married and moved out and just kind of took a different path. No matter how volatile and challenging and difficult, truth be told, I never really had an issue with being able to get out there and figure it out on my own, do what I have to do some kind of way. Okay. For the most part now. And this triggered my family even more. Okay. So they further got subconscious traumas and blame in them that drove them to treat me in certain ways. Okay. So when I took the organized religious path, because I'm a dedicated soul, if I do something, then I'm going to do it. This is a part of my process, the path to truth, is if I'm going in, I'm not going to play the game. Now, if I'm going to do it, then I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it every bit of what I got, heart and soul. Okay. So I always knew that there was things wrong and off about my family. I always kind of sensed and felt based on their behavior and their choices, their words, and sometimes the lack thereof, that they didn't really have a full interest in me, that there was some kind of underlying jealousy, envy, or resentment or need to try to compete and pair, wanting to make me feel some kind of way. I always knew it. So when I took the organized religious path very early on, I separated myself from them. And that, like any other narc organized group control mindset of people and narcs and karmics that seek to control and seeks to capitalize your energy, this pissed them off. So with my mother, it pissed her off. You know, she already had those traumas from what happened between my father and her, right? As a result of, you know, me coming onto the scene. But then, you know, she blamed the church. She blamed the, you know, when I was a part of the organized religious church, then she blamed the first lady of the church and her husband and, you know, yada, yada. I mean, for separating me and, you know what I'm saying? All of that. And then she blamed me for doing it because I was going to hold boundary regardless. And that's something that they never got. You know, these were my decisions. And for me, I always knew that something was off. I always knew something was off. I always knew they didn't seem to really love and support. It was very surface. It was very fake and very shallow and very self-serving. They were always trying to sabotage the entire time. Okay. So every time in my life and path that I separated myself from them, I disconnected in the name of trying to find clarity or, and just best said, just to get away from their fake love and their fuck shit, you know, trying to, you know, subconsciously, indirectly, passive aggressively make me feel some kind of way. Right? Not respecting boundaries. They did not respect me. You know what I'm saying? They were hypocritical because all of their asses were criminals or hoeing on some level, or, you know what I'm saying, the capitalizing a connection that they had to get some kind of resource. Yet they try to make themselves out to the world as these together people. And I was supposed to be this one that was weak and codependent and couldn't get it together and with mental problems. My issue was always, it was trauma. I had endured a life of trauma from narcissistic abuse. Through them, you know, my mother and her friends, you know, starting at an early age, associates, you know, contacting witch doctors, putting hexes because she dealt with the Prevost, which was notoriously known for that shit at that time. Okay. And from that to, you know what I'm saying, just their negligence, their abandonment, their hatred, their emotional disconnect, their failure to be parents and take responsibility, their twisted need to get parented from their own children. Okay. So the more that happens, you guys, over time, the more they were running off of anything that I did that they didn't approve of. Anytime that I separated myself from them or was independent, you know, spoke my truth, independent, you know, because that's a part of it. My mom and sister became more and more upset because as time proceeded, I started saying more and more of my truth, especially once I got to Nevada and my older sister betrayed me. Okay. And didn't blink, her and my nieces. Okay. Regarding me and my son. So I went off because I could have had, you know, my logic was I could have stayed the hell where I was, but they wanted to get close to me to do their fuck shit for their rituals and spells to work and to hopefully get me stuck out there and then to, you know what I'm saying, use and take advantage of my energy so she can rip and run the streets so I can deal with her kids. I was getting on her nerves. And because my oldest niece, you know what I'm saying, was having her first baby and all that kind of stuff. And so that's really what all that was about. It wasn't about nothing loving and sweet in spite of how they tried to portray this shit to be. Okay. So they have been running off of this subconscious resentment and anger, yet they say it's me. They projected it the other way around. I try to come and actually deal with shit, try to heal shit, the real way, not this fake way. But see, my family, these are karmics. They were never on a path to healing. They have religion, but they are not divine in nature. Okay? They have rituals, sayings, and quotes, but they have never done any introspection. They have never done, and it's evident. It's evident with anybody who has real discernment and who's awakened. It's evident in the things that they have done and chose to do, first and foremost to me, to my son, because if there was any divinity in any of them, none of them would have conducted in the way in which they did. So they subconsciously tried to sabotage my life. That's what was running. That's what was driving them to do what they did. But they tried to cleverly hide it behind religion, the religion in which they don't even uphold. Okay? So, this is what they portray to the world, but they do rituals and sacrifices. They steal. They're whores and con artists. Okay? They sacrifice their own. So you tell me, what does that equal to you? So they hide. See, the point that I'm trying to make is they know what they were doing because they hid. They went as far as to hide, to hire people, to create fake profiles because they knew they were up to fuck shit. They knew they were trying to sabotage. What does that tell you? That they knew what they were doing was wrong, or they didn't want to appear to the world because they want to portray themselves to be as godly, loving people. And they're pathological liars, and people buy it or bought it at the time. So, collective, if you have a story similar to mine, whether you are a divine feminine or a divine masculine, and you know that you were born into a karmic family, a part of helping you to understand what has happened is connecting these dots about their subconscious programming from the gate. As karmics, they're already programmed to come against the divine. Okay. But on top of that, any traumatic events that's somehow connected to you, whether it is you were born and then all this chaos happened with, your parents, or they blame you, okay, or when you took back your power, you start speaking truths that they didn't like and want to hear, then there's that resentment, and so from there you become this target, and this is the subconscious. Okay, to some extent, they themselves don't know fully, okay, that the reason why they're so driven in the first place to do all this stuff is because they're karmics. And it is past life subconscious trauma, or they're holding some kind of resentment from this lifetime that they're blaming you for, and then they're projecting it and saying that is you. It's not resentment when we are angry and seek a resolve from an injustice in a healthy way. It is resentment when we are denying what happened, denying what we did or what happened to us, and then yet we're subconsciously driven to try to interfere or bring disruption to that other individual's life. So essentially, that is my family, okay? And whoever they partnered up with or teamed up with or rallied up with, okay, they use religion so they can get a group of folks who are eyeballs deep in religion and in disillusionment, feeling like they have a right to interfere in my world. my business and what I do based on their distortion, okay, of what they believe. So understand that that's probably the case with you, and this is going to help you release those questions, okay? This is also going to help you if you're a divine feminine and you dealt with a masculine that didn't want to believe it, and worse yet, teamed up with it. It's going to help you to release them too, okay? Also, about like that swap and switch shit, you guys, start setting intentions on a general plane about anything that you suspect, to where somebody played with your Akashic records, where they're trying to hide your true divine counterpart, or they're trying to swap. And you don't have to think hard about it. You can just ask your guides and set that intention and revoke and reverse and return that to those that are involved or collaborating with that, their distortion back to them and their realities to them. And any rituals and spells to try to cloak and hide, your divine soul tribe, your divine, soulmates, people that are divinely a part of your path in a high vibe way. You can speak against any cloaking magic and confusion, and just continue to live life. But do that. Take that authority, verbalize that, make it a ritual, write it out, however you feel guided. That's going to also help you to start manifesting your high vibe soul tribe. Okay. It also will help you to manifest replacement. If you're getting a replacement, a counterpart due to the forfeit of your original, anything that they're attempting to do to block that from happening, you can speak on that as well, okay? And then you'll start to see things shift for you. Okay, that's it for now. What the heck? Oh. Okay, I don't know what's happening. It's not allowing me to click on it here, so I'm just gonna go. Love and light. Namaste.